to guard our native strand. Britannia then shall surely know, though oceans roll between her sons. If they're Australia's land, still keep their courage green. In joyful strains then let us sing Advance Australia Fair. Australia's sons, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, for beauty rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing Advance Australia Fair.
The Uncuckables.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the regular Thursday Uncuckables. We are live on the show's YouTube and D-Live channel, and we've just got some breaking news, which we've all agreed to say together.
1, 2,
Ding.
3, 4. Ding,
Ding,
dong,
dong.
dong, dong, the witch
Yeah,
is
good
dead,
job, Rick.
victory.
James.
We're on different time zones here.
No, you blew it, James.
I blew it.
Yeah, James was counting us down. You're both
Go again.
musicians, and you totally ruined it.
Well, we didn't discuss how we were going to do it.
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
right.
If
We
we've
didn't
done
prep.
music before,
Let's-
if we've done music
let's
before,
try
like,
again.
we have that. Okay, 3, 4. Ding dong.
Ding dong,
the
the
witch
witch
is
is dead.
dead.
Witch is
Good job.
Wait,
I think there's
This
actually
doesn't
delay.
work
That's why
over the
it doesn't
internet.
work.
Okay.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, I've tried jamming on the internet before, and it always fails.
Yeah. So which old witch has died?
Oh, being sacked. Raelene. Just like we said she would. It's magnificent.
Raelene Castle, the CEO of Rugby Australia. I also refer to her as the goth chick because of her black hair and black lipstick.
Yeah, and that fringe.
And she's not even Australian. She's New Zealander.
Those accursed Kiwis
So you're saying she was
coming
a
in and
plant
taking
all
our
along?
jobs.
And
So what's the story, boys? Like, what? Who woke up to the insanity that she was in the position she was in?
Oh, well, I did a piece on this a few weeks ago, actually. Like,
Also, it's your fault, Dave.
yes, it's my fault. I got sacked. You can blame
Excellent.
me. Yes.
Yep.
I'll bring up the article.
Yeah. Hang on, I'll bring it up as well. I should have had this ready.
Yeah.
Got all that countdown music. I could have got this ready.
Obviously,
At
we're
least
totally
you do
prepared.
better than Maddie, who I said, have you looked at the topics? And he's like, nope.
Nah. And then let me guess, did Maddie then proceed to talk about what Maddie wanted to talk about?
Well, he actually got he actually got emasculated by Richard Wollstonecroft on Tuesday's Uncuckables. Maddie was pretty quiet.
Emasculated.
He was typing away on his keyboard for most of the time. That was
Yeah,
the loudest.
I wouldn't
that
say
Maddie
he was
was.
emasculated. It sounds like he was probably bored because he wasn't talking.
Yeah, you never get lost in the chats.
Yeah, I've noticed that because I searched on the XYZ website Ding Dong, and you did an article on the 30th of October 2018. Ding Dong, the witch is dead. Merkel quits, sort of. She's still there in 2020.
Yeah, the coronavirus has extended her stay, hasn't it?
But Raelene Castle, she's definitely dead at Rugby Australia, and I think dead to rugby fans. I finally got the article up here.
Yeah, good. I'm just I won't be able to read it off the thing, so I'm just hang on. I'll bring it up on my own pad. You guys talk about how much you hate her and like how she should go back to the kitchen and how she's fat and ugly for a minute or two.
Well, I was just going to say that if Merkel, when Merkel does finally die, I'm almost certain it's going to be of Kuru.
Do you know an interesting fact about Merkel?
I think James just gave us this just amazing little thing, which I reckon if we delve into that, it'd be a really interesting topic. What did you just say?
When Merkel finally kicks the can, she, like many of her ilk, it'll be of Kuru disease. You guys know what that is?
Yes. That's the disease that you get when you eat babies.
That's right.
Well, she's never given birth to a baby, is what I was getting at.
Yeah, it's the disease you get when you eat human flesh. Yeah, it's a fair accusation that a lot of these world leaders engage in satanic rituals. Yeah.
So it was the 3 new board members who were looking for her to trying to show her the door into the kitchen.
Yeah,
that's irony.
Can the chat can the chat see the pictures that I put up?
In the bioweapons mask.
Yeah, tremendous.
So it was Virgin Australia co-founder Brad Godfrey. Well, he's from an airline which has gone into voluntary administration now, so it's not that crash hot. Supercars chairman Peter Wiggs and former Wallaby Daniel Herbert took their places on the RA board, which had a huge task.
3 white men.
Faces $120 million revenue black hole, because she also, Raelene Castle, negotiations with Foxtel broke down over the new broadcast rights deal, because Fox Sports were pretty much exclusive rights. It was only Network 10 that aired the international games. So the Super Rugby, which is the transnational competition. Yeah, you don't like me using that word transnational, do you, Dave?
I prefer trad-national, yes.
Trad-national. Well, is the trad-national Super Rugby, which contains Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Japan, Argentina, is that trad to you?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't listening. I was looking at the next book that I wrote.
Well, what I want to know is what's more of a dirty word, and maybe this should be our first poll in the entropy tonight. Is what's more of a dirty word? Is it international or transnational? Because they both seem pretty dirty to me.
Yeah,
I've already got
the
the first poll ready to go. I was ahead of the curve tonight. So the
Ah,
poll is, who's been a worse sporting CEO? Has it been Raelene Castle for Rugby Australia, or has it been Todd Greenberg, the other Mr. Penis Head, who resigned as NRL CEO on Tuesday? Because basically the 9 CEO Hugh Marks refused to work with him because he wasted all of the broadcast rights money on a bloated head office and administration.
I find this interesting, actually, Tim. Like you were saying that he actually said, like in his basically his sacking speech, that he was proud to leave a diverse rugby league. Yeah,
because Macklemore performed Same Love at the 2017 NRL Grand Final during the marriage survey.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like that basically sums up why they're getting rid of him and why he's been a failure. And why
so it's sort of a "I regret nothing" speech.
Pretty much, isn't it? Yeah. He's doubling down even when he's sacked.
So please join us on Entropy to vote in that poll. You can also ask us a question and send through a super chat. You and I, Dave, we're both Melburnians. We're both AFL fans. It's quite amusing to see the rival codes just collapse like this. And it seems that the AFL...
But quite frankly, though, I hope the AFL collapses as well. I want all of the major sporting codes to collapse financially and not be able to run competitions, because I want people to be able to get back to playing sport for sport's sake without having
grassroots.
Play grassroots football, whichever code you want, and where the biggest difference of opinion is over whether rugby league is over whether rugby is a thugs game or AFL is a girls game. You know, it's like that should be about as big a disagreement as we have. Like, you know, like and
that's the extent of the politics of sport. That should like there shouldn't be any other politics or morals or lifestyle or culture around sport other than the love of the game, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I highlighted, like in this next bit in my piece, like, so I pointed out that, all three of those guys are all men, and I would assume all white men. And so like the next bit said, like they're said to have a new perspective on the way that the game's hierarchy has approached the management of the code. I love the way they said that they want to have a new perspective, because it's like, it's not a new perspective. They just want to actually run the business like a business and run the sport like a sport, rather than bringing in all of this other attention.
But that's amazingly radical in this day and age.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Because I love the fact, like I said, that they've been bleeding viewers, crowds, and participation numbers. So like they couldn't even get enough people to play the game in the first place. Like that's how badly it was all going. And yeah, there's an amazing picture of a headline I had, like from a couple of years ago when she got in.
Have you got it down? Oh yeah, I've got it. I've got it here.
Yeah, new chief executive keen to play down gendered analysis after being tasked with addressing the game's many issues. What does it say? Rugby Australia choose best person for job, but Castle's appointment's still symbolic. So they were wanting to have the cake and eat it too. They were saying, oh, she only got chosen because she's the best one. But like it's also, isn't it great that she's a woman? It's like, no, it was just that she was a woman.
So here's a question from a sporting ignoramus. Is this shift in the culture of these codes, with these new board members and these sackings, do you think it's going to be enough for them to get serious about dealing with basically the what I consider to be the criminal issue of allowing men to play as women in the peripheral sports? I know, are those groups associated?
Well, that's if you believe that there should be professional women's sports league.
Good point. Well, that's the most great thing you've ever said.
Well, yeah.
Because the only reason that men can participate in women's sports, biological men, which even if they do live as women and have had surgery, they've still got They
don't live as women. They live as mutilated men. Yeah. They can't live as women. They can pretend if they want.
But they still have the physiological advantages of being born male, such as Hannah Mountsie, that AFL
that dude is big.
What's his real name again? You should use his real name, Tim.
I don't know Hannah Mountsie's birth name.
Dead name, right?
Dead name, yes. Dead name is like saying that it's basically like saying the N-word to transgender people.
We care about as equally these days.
they were 12 years a slave, yeah.
Why don't you look it up? If you're so determined to dead name her, look it up.
Him. I will in a bit. Getting back to your question, James, I basically agree with your analysis. I think what we're going to see, like you can make the argument that both Greenberg and Castle are victims of the coronavirus. Their jobs are victims of the coronavirus, because what the coronavirus is doing, it's making the consequences, the negative consequences of virtue signaling, immediate. Those consequences used to be
Hallelujah.
Those consequences, it used to mean that your kids would be the only white kid in the swimming pool.
That's right. Yeah, kicking the can down the road, like the typical boomer mentality, right? Yeah. Yes,
but now it means that your kids may get coronavirus because you took them to a Chinese restaurant. All of a sudden, when people are worrying about where the money is going to come from, they don't have money to waste on all this virtue signaling nonsense. It was admitted just the other day that women's football relies on men's football to make the money for it so that it can survive. And so they're worried that women's football will not survive.
Don't forget it's free entry. You don't have to pay for a ticket.
Oh yes, but they need money just to keep the lights on, and they're not going to get that from the men's game.
Don't watch women's football though is because of internalized misogyny.
Of course. Well, I guess that internalized misogyny is becoming sort of externalized now, thanks to the coronavirus. Yeah.
People have fewer shits to give, that's for sure.
That's it.
It's
that's
internalized
literally
misogyny that it makes you not want to watch a AFL game where there's less than 10 goals scored.
That's it. Yeah. Mind you, that sounds like the typical game between Melbourne and the Gold Coast, but I don't blame people if they don't want to turn up to that. Yeah, so that's basically what's going on. I think we're going to see it across society. We're essentially going to see a restoration of the natural order because people have to consider the consequences of their actions right now.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like just all of this other stuff just goes out the window.
Yeah, and there's going to be, I guess, what's happened for well, at least you and I, Dave, maybe not for Tim just yet, but we've reached that threshold where, no, we won't lie about the gender of the person we're being forced to look at because they're all over the media, getting their sob stories out there, being promoted. We won't lie, No, I won't take. There are 4 lights, and nothing you can do is going to make me say that there are 5 lights. That is a man pretending to be a woman, and nothing you can say or do will make me lie about the natural reality. I can be in the presence of a person who is suffering from whatever mental affliction they need to have to be acting as though they are the opposite gender to what they are, and I can be kind to them, but I'm not going to lie to them. Part of being kind and loving is speaking the truth. I'm not going to pretend there's something.
You're talking about Callum, of course, aren't you? Callum Mounsey, yes.
Right, there we go.
Bleep.
Yeah. I don't even mind the name thing. It's like people change their names all the time. If you want to give yourself a girl's name, whatever, I don't really care. But I'm not going to lie. I will not lie just because society tells me that I have to.
You revealed recently that you added the Fox to your name.
Oh yeah. It's a stage name. I created it as a performance name as a musician, and I just stuck with it for writing and then the podcasting. But it's not on my birth certificate.
So it's sort
Tim,
of like,
Tim, is it true that you wanted to by default add a extra middle name? Or you want to put the middle name of Augustus in?
My middle name is no, I won't reveal my middle name on the show.
Well,
don't dox yourself.
Yeah.
I just when people ask me my real name, I just tell them what my full birth certificate name means rather than the actual name. So it means supplanter of evil, defender of men, renowned wolf of the Vikings. And if you want to reverse engineer that and find out what that name is, I'll give you a freaking trophy.
That's awesome.
I was born for this shit, man.
Yeah, you really were. You were born in the coronavirus.
Your name is your real name, Dave.
Yes.
Yep, the man of multiple cocks.
I mean, it's not something that you
and they're all
make
his.
up.
That's it. It's hilarious because when I was a kid, I used to hate the fact that I had a penis in my name. Now that I'm an adult, I'm like, this is freaking awesome.
Yeah, and there's more than one. That's the best part. At least twice the penis.
Yeah.
All right. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, football. So yeah, do you think that this political, this organizational shift for these football organizations, do you think this is going to be the beginning of a rapid pendulum swing back towards common sense and people rejecting the politics of women's sports and the nagging, the nagging and the moaning and the bitching from the women's side of things to get more hand-me-downs from the men's side of things, and the crying sexism, the crying transphobia, all this garbage that people have had to put up with. Because I was saying, 2 years ago, sorry to rant for a minute.
Sure.
Sorry, not sorry.
Your rants are good.
About 2 years ago when I started the James Fox Higgins show, on the very first episode, I did a segment on Hannah Mounsey, and my prediction was that the moment this guy and his whole shtick goes mainstream, because he wasn't, he's not a really famous high level dude, and he was moving into a sport that no one really cares about, and doesn't he do handball or something? Anyway, but as soon as this kind of woke messaging goes mainstream, and starts affecting everyday sports, that's when Australia will get massively red pilled and the resistance will begin. People will begin to fight back, because once you get in between Australians and their sports over trivial political nonsense, shit's going to get real. And it seems to be the case. And it didn't exactly manifest in the way that I imagined it. The Isreal Folau situation was huge, and that was that was unexpected, but it went well. It was a good thing for Australia to witness and see unroll. The level of cruelty and vindictiveness from the organizations, from the banks, the level of hatred towards Christianity. All of this has really woken Australia up in a positive way. So yeah, hopefully the pendulum will swing back quickly now.
Yeah, I think that's some good analysis. You're right. Like, even without the coronavirus changing people's calculations, it was a massive red pill. I think that plus the coronavirus is going to, as I said, restore the natural order. It won't happen overnight. Like, the globalists are fighting a pretty strong rearguard action. But yes, it will happen.
Yeah.
We'll get into some of the rearguard actions that they're fighting in a few minutes, I guess. But yeah, they'll just hold on. Like, I think we can confidently make the prediction that in about 2 years' time, a good portion of this politically correct nonsense will be swept away, because there just won't be the finance. There won't be the finance to keep it going. Like, even without all the politically correct nonsense, we've been living off the hard work of our predecessors for decades. But because we've been wasting a lot of the capital that's been built up in the West by giving money to the unproductive and basically giving it to the rest of the world, whether they're over here or we're letting them all come in. And so that's been unsustainable. And we understand that our banking system and our financial system is built on fake money and usury. So that's unsustainable. What we've got is an economic a potential economic collapse because of the coronavirus. All of this nonsense has been able to exist because we've been able to fund it, because these people have been able to get money.
The easy times that make weak men.
Yes, that's exactly what it is, and we're about to reach those. We're about to reach hard times. So,
I mean, we don't even have the sports going at the moment. The NRL has said they're going to come back on May 28th. The AFL has hinted at a July restart. Maybe that's because Daniel Andrews has told them he wants to keep us all locked up for a bit longer than the other states. But the AFL seems to have basically they're the one anomaly to the rule, go woke, go broke, because they've still got all this money, this war chest, despite all of their virtue signaling. And I think it's because just the AFL fans are the maddest and most devoted, that they swallow some of it, but of course with the Adam Goods thing, they weren't going to cop him saying that the Australian project was completely racist, and they weren't going to cop the behavioural awareness officers who didn't look like normal AFL supporters, to say the least.
I reckon you can make the case that the AFL, the ARL and Rugby Australia were all essentially had fallen out of an aeroplane without a parachute. It's just that the rugby codes were closer to the ground.
Well, they also have you seen an NRL or rugby game on television? Like, the stadiums were already empty.
Exactly.
Well, now they're forced to be empty. So
Yep. And as we're seeing in so many ways, with crisis comes opportunity, and with the hard times that are upon us, the restoration of the natural order, as Dave put it before, is quite right. Strong men are going to emerge, and we, as being the leaders once again going into the future, and we're not going to tolerate the bullshit and the lies and the wokeness. It's plainly obvious what's true and what's not. And also, you know, as you said before, with these football organizations beginning to treat their businesses like businesses again, well, the bottom line is far more important than the virtue signaling. You know, when it can't sustain if it's losing money, and the money system is going to collapse, as you said. So there's not going to really be opportunities for bailouts. You know, football is not too big to fail. I think your wish that these massive, you know, mega national and international sporting organizations will grind to a halt and probably completely collapse, and it's fine, guys. You know, just like even if our governments completely collapse, our economy completely collapses, all the banks completely collapse, all the airlines completely collapse, it's okay, guys. Like, football will live on. Football is a people's activity. Western civilization will live on because Western civilization is not defined by the bureaucrats and the institutions. It's defined by the people. And as long as we carry it forward in our cultural activities and the ways that we interact with one another, all of these great things that we enjoy will live on, and they'll be much better and much cleaner into the future.
James, we're getting some sort of, when you speak, some like pitter patter. I'm not sure what's going on your end.
It's all the spit from all the, you know, the righteous fury flying out.
I don't think it's that.
Might be distortion. I'll pull my my volume back a bit.
Do you know the other company, which is also, there's actually two anomalies to the go woke, go broke, and that is Qantas. They seem to be, well, Alan Joyce, he hasn't asked for any government bailout. He has in the past. Virgin has put its hand out for, I think, something like 1.3 billion, and Albo and the Labour front benches and the unionists were there on the Tuesday demanding a bailout for this Arab, Chinese, and British-owned company. But the government hasn't blinked. But it sort of raises an interesting question. It could make the subject of the next poll. Raelene Castle, she was voted the worst because which airline is worse? Is it Qantas run by Alan Joyce, or is it Virgin owned by all foreigners?
Plane's a plane, man. If it gets you from A to B and it's not too expensive, you know, like, I don't give a shit about the brands. I don't give a shit about the companies. That, you know, let them burn. The planes will still exist, and some enterprising group or people, you know, will put them in the air and put bums on seats and get people from A to B. So, you know, damn them all. Damn them all to hell. I'm all about corporate side, you know, like the one of the biggest problems that we have in society is the existence of these demonic fake entities that have the legal rights of human beings, but they don't have any corporeal form. They're called corporations, and they should not exist. They're paper entities, and they are designed so that people can escape from accountability for their actions. And I say we should murder them all en masse. We should round them all up and slay them. The corporates, the corporations, not the people who work for them, the corporations, because they don't even have bodies. They're just paperwork. We can murder them like that. Delete them.
Murder people, corporations are people.
No, this is the problem. Is corporations are parading as people, but yeah, and they have the legal.
That was my attempt to gaslight there and try and manipulate what you said.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you're on board. Are you on board? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I am.
Are you with me or against me, Tim?
I was trying to imply you were saying murder people, but you meant the only
murder corporate side, not, you know, not homicide at all. I don't condone violence towards people at all, but I condone the murder of corporations,
which are people.
And it's no, they're not people. What are you talking about?
They're legally people.
Well, no, they're entities. They're non-corporeal entities, and so we should stop treating them as though they have any moral rights at all. They don't, and they don't have any spirit. And in fact, if they do have a spirit, it's a demonic one, because it's able to twist the natural order to its advantage and allow evil people, I'm not saying everyone who works for a corporation is evil, but a lot of people who use the corporate structure are evil, and they use its illegitimacy, its natural illegitimacy, to their advantage for evil deeds. So yeah, I would like to live in a post-corporate world, and the only way to do that is to round up all the corporate entities and gas them.
I was thinking we could take their books and start a big bonfire and put their books on the bonfire.
Book burn, corporate book burning. I like it.
Yeah. Have you heard about? I'm going to be discussing it with Dewey tomorrow night on Trad Tasman Talk. New Zealand, you're only allowed to, with stage 4 lockdown, only allowed to buy essential books, which only includes non-fiction books. You cannot buy fiction books. So you can't buy Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. So even though you can still, I don't get, if you buy a fiction book, are you going to get coronavirus from it? Even though a bookshop's able to still sell non-fiction, but it can't sell fiction. Is the fiction book going to give you coronavirus?
Sorry, I kind of missed the first couple of words of this, so I'm not sure. Is this being framed as a hypothetical dystopian future in which only non-fiction books are allowed, or is this
No,
actually
this is
happening?
New Zealand. This is New Zealand. You can only non-fiction books are deemed essential. Fiction books are not.
Well, which ones are non-fiction?
Well,
That's
people have been
point.
debating that.
Yeah, I mean, the things that they call history and fact and science, there's a heap of fiction in those departments.
You could describe most history books as fake news.
And there's no way that Tolkien is fiction. It's allegory. It's essential stuff.
Yeah, you two should film yourself going to a public library and just rearranging it.
It's actually a really, really good idea. Yeah.
Except they're all closed.
Or when it's
We
open
could go to a
again.
bookshop.
Wow, man, New Zealand's getting crazy, hey? Even crazier. Why are they? I don't understand this. You're talking about in physical bookshops.
No, ordering it online, even ordering it from a bookstore online.
What difference does it make what's in the book?
You can order it online, but they can't ship it and process the sale until lockdown's lifted.
Unless it's non-fiction.
Yeah.
That is so fucking insane.
Wow.
Oh my God. I can't. It is so mad. There is no sense to that at all. You've got to be joking, Tim. You cannot be.
No, it's real.
Cannot be real. This cannot be real.
It's real.
You got to bring it up. Bring it up, Tim. Got to bring up the story. We want to see the story. This is
All right.
This is as bad as there was some policeman who was actually on duty, policing a beach, making sure that nobody was at the beach, and breaking quarantine. And so then he took 5 minutes just to catch a bit of sun, and a drone found him, and they sent armed police to actually get this guy, because he was sunning himself for 5 minutes on his break, making sure nobody was at his beach.
Yeah. It's the literal idiocracy. We're there. We're there. That movie is reality now. Yeah.
Have you guys seen the footage of the police officers in England? They broke this guy's door in, and they wanted to make sure that there were nobody breaking the anti-social distancing laws.
So they don't even need a snitch hotline over there. They've just got the police resources to just patrol flats, but they still can't stop grooming gangs and acid and knife attacks and terrorism.
It's so, and that particular situation was so nuts. They're like, we suspect you might be having a party of 3 people in your tiny little London apartment or wherever it was, your tiny little unit.
I've got it now,
and
the
so
article.
We're going to send 6 police officers in. 6 cops are going to kick down your door and totally break it, so that you are now no longer safe. You can't lock your door. You're no longer safe. Anyone can just come and walk in. And we're going to put 6 cops in your house, thus making it a party, to find out that there was no one home but you. It's clown world on meth.
Hey, you didn't believe me here. This is the...
let me start the video up because I can't see.
We can hear Dave in the background.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Yeah, Jacinta Ardern pulps fiction. New Zealand government bans the sale of classic novels, including Harry Potter and The Lord of the Rings, but you can still order self-help books. New Zealand government has banned online delivery for non-essentials. That includes fiction books, although essential books are allowed to be sent. So you can order fiction books, but they'll not be delivered yet. Yeah, they're going from stage 4 to stage 3 on April 28. Remember how Daniel Andrews, remember he's Jacinta Ardern's trans-Tasman cousin. He was saying before we pancake flatten the curve that we're definitely going to go to level 4 lockdown. I don't know what it is, but we are definitely going to go there. And then they said, we may have to go there. We probably might not have to, but we may still need to.
They're all just making this shit up as they go along.
Yeah, they've said they've actually said throughout the whole things, we don't know what the next stage of lockdown looks like. We are just making it up as we go along.
Yeah, and Jacinta's just getting together with her cabinet and just going, all right, what do we object to today? Fiction. That's fiction. It's so completely bonkers. I'm astonished. What's your source there, Tim?
Source. This is the.
Yeah, I'm actually questioning your credibility as a journalist now because I'm in such a state of disbelief about this news. and I'll send you a couple of fiction books to apologize if it's
why
all true.
Why don't you go to a New Zealand bookseller after tonight's show and place an order for?
Yeah, I will. Far out. It's unbelievable. It's so crazy. It's just so stupid. Sorry, I'm just waxing disbelief now.
She's definitely like Dolores Umbridge in Harry Potter, Jacinta Ardern, and Gigi Ping. He is Voldemort.
Did you say Gigi Ping?
Yeah.
Is he he's like half Brazilian? Is he?
Gigi Ping.
Shi Jin or Jing? I think
it's Shi Jing.
I better pronounce his name right because we know that he's quite sensitive. He gets triggered. He might call me a racist, like Tim Supomasani if you don't say his name properly.
That one's impossible. The supporters of Xi in China call him Xi Dada, which is much easier to say.
That is true. She dud.
No, that was a dud. Sorry, Tim. So now, kill babies at whatever age you like.
Abortion's essential. Churches are
abortion's
closed,
essential. And what I want to know is, because there was controversy in New Zealand a year or so ago with Jordan Peterson, and his book, which is, I guess you could say, is non-fiction, although I would argue that, but it's technically classed as non-fiction, and it got banned in New Zealand after the Christchurch shooting because of a guy and all of this stupid, unrelated drama. So I want to know now, can you still buy 12 Rules for Life and Mein Kampf in New Zealand, where you now can't buy Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings?
Well, it's not all non-fiction books. It's just the non-fiction they deem essential. So they can still ban non-fiction books. So it's only non-fictional books that are educational, or there's a
woke.
If I go further down,
if they're actually curating the books rather than being a broad stroke, fiction is banned, non-fiction's allowed.
Yeah.
If they're actually curating the content, it's the Ministry for Truth. They are literally just.
Here, I've got the list here. So it's medical and professional books, textbooks. That was allowed. That was the only books allowed until last week, when further exceptions were made. Books about food and drink, personal care and pet care, as well as children's and education books, can now be sent to customers. Retail company Mighty Ape has a helpful essentials tab showing which books customers can get hold of. So. Is 12 Rules for Life considered personal care I don't think Mein Kampf would fall under any
Not
of
by me.
those.
Yeah, no red
Oh,
pilling allowed. It's amazing, isn't it?
It's astonishing.
If like we try really, really hard not to be conspiracy theorists on this show, but with every new little thing that we hear, we're like, you know, if I was wanting to set up a totalitarian state and stop people from being able to go outside just for ordinary things, if I wanted to try to stop the free flow of information, if I wanted to make sure that people only read state-approved stuff, a list of thing after thing after thing. If I wanted to make sure that I could control people's actions in every single way possible, I would just say that there's a virus out there and use that as the excuse for everything. Like, because people on the show will know that I'm not a coronavirus denier. If anything, I'm a coronavirus hysteric. I think hundreds of millions of people could still die from it. But it's just that their actions, every single one of their actions, fit that James Bond-esque villain role of like, it's like they're just ticking off a list of the cartoon totalitarian.
Yeah, somebody shared a clip on Twitter the other day and was just like, "You will not believe your eyes and ears," and it was a segment from that Pierce Brosnan 007 film, Tomorrow Never Dies, the one where the arch villain is a media mogul who just uses the
Elliot Carver, who is based on Robert Maxwell, not Rupert Murdoch, as people seem to think. Because at the end, M says to Moneypenny, write a story that said Elliot Carver fell off his boat in the South China Sea, call it a suicide.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Tim's way more versed in his James Bond
go
films
on
than
with
me.
the point that you're making.
No, that's it. No, you took it and ran with it. That's all I wanted to say. But just the way that the things that we were sort of thinking were cheesy Bond villain styles back in the 90s, you know, it's now it's just all the dystopian fiction is now coming true. Maybe that's why they're shutting down fiction, is they don't want people to read Orwell or Bradbury and see this was all you should have known, people. This was coming.
Yeah. 1984 really was a checklist. Yeah.
But it's telling what the agenda is. This is why I've called tonight's episode Open Wide Shut, because it's clear that I call them the lockdown luvvies. They want the lockdown to continue for as long as possible, so that there's as much economic ruin as possible, because it looks like Daniel Andrews, he's the one saying, "Oh, hang on here." And remember, he was the first one saying, "Oh, we may have to ask Victorians to do things that they haven't been asked to do before." He should have noticed the newspeak there that he said asked. He said we may have to force. That's what he should have said. He's not. They're not asking us to do things. They're not asking us to do the right thing. They're threatening us with $1,000 plus fines.
Yeah, we're only a few steps away from enforced homosexuality. I'm sure that's on the horizon.
Well, that's I think why they allowed Daniel Andrews. The bonking ban lasted 6 hours, because remember, you weren't allowed to mention a partner that you didn't live with.
Yeah.
Although he has closed the gay saunas down as well, Daniel Andrews.
Good.
Again, natural order, restoration.
Yeah.
But I'll go on with the point that I was making. So, and anyone who says that because we have really pancake flatten the curve, like they still talk about the total cases, which is 6,661, but they don't mention the recovery cases, which is 5,045. So that's basically more than 3/4 now have recovered from coronavirus, and we've had 75 deaths. We've got 45 in ICU, and we've got 152 in hospital. We've got a 1.4% positive test rate after that, and we've conducted 466,000 tests there. And if you look at the curve there, look, it's and in some states there's been, such as South Australia, Western Australia, and Northern Territory, they're recording 0 new cases, but they tell us to fear a second wave, or we should just be.
We should.
Yeah, no, but they're using that as justification to keep us locked in our homes for
That's
longer.
a good point. It's not a justification to keep us in our homes, but it is a justification to keep the borders closed.
No, they want to. That's the thing. They want to release. They've openly said they want to release the prisoners, release the people from detention, and Victorian Parliament is sitting today so that they can change the law so that people out on bail don't have to report to police anymore. And they're all decrying Trump's immigration ban as xenophobic, even though that was the primary reason we got the coronavirus, because of mass people movements.
Because of xenophilia, yeah.
So they want us natives to be locked up. But they want you see the agenda here. They want.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing though, because like if they do want to open things up, because like it's true, we have dodged a bullet. Like the Australian government closed the borders later than a lot of us would have liked, but they do seem to have been able to quarantine the country quite well. If we open the borders to the rest of the country, especially the kinds of countries who we've been encouraging to come, the people from the countries that we've been encouraging to come to Australia, then we are going to have a really big second wave. Because the thing at the moment is that we're seeing all the big stats of deaths come out of Europe and America. Like at least 2,000 people in America are dying each day. And between Spain, the United Kingdom and France and Italy, a few thousand people in Europe are dying each day. That's not including all the other ones too. But the thing is, when coronavirus really gets cracking in Asia, like South Asia, like India, Africa and South America, that's when like a country like Australia, which, you know, like we're encouraging people to come to Australia from those countries, that's when we're really going to have to worry about the second wave. So what I'm arguing here, and this could sort of segue into that SBS article, we've really got to keep the borders closed. That's the most amazing thing. Like you can actually make a pretty good case to let people get out and do more things, but we've got to keep the borders closed. We're going to have to keep Australia quarantined from the outside for quite some time.
Yeah,
it's the current global coronavirus deaths here it is 185,000, and coronavirus cases worldwide 2.6 million, but 729,000 have recovered. But I dug up the historical pandemic table, which is worth looking at here. So 1899 to 23, the cholera outbreak, Europe, Asia, and Africa, 80,000 deaths. China, bubonic plague, 40,000 deaths. That was in 1910 to 12. Spanish flu, 50 million plus worldwide, 1980 to 20. The Asian flu in 57, 58. Does anyone? I've never known about the Asian flu until that. That killed 2 million worldwide. Then there was the Hong Kong flu in 68, 69. That killed 1 million worldwide. 1960 onwards, HIV/AIDS has killed 30 million worldwide. SARS killed 1,000 worldwide. The 2009 flu pandemic, that's the swine flu, 203,000 there. So as you can see, we've had much more deadly pandemics, yet we didn't have national lockdowns.
I'll stop you there, Tim. I'll stop you there. So, like, even with the lockdowns, we've had officially counted 180,000 dead. So you've got to make the case that in third world countries, they don't have the facilities to test people who have the virus and are dying. And so, like, it's entirely possible that the death toll is actually much higher in third world countries, and we are pretty certain that in China the death toll is much higher.
But
plus, it's only April.
I want to get the point that
wait. No. So this thing's been going for about 6 months, and so yes, these other things were much more were much worse. But like we're still only seeing the first wave. Like if you look at the graph of the Spanish flu. Like the first wave kind of went like that, and then there was a long gap, and then the next northern hemisphere winter came along, and the next wave was like that, and then the wave after that there was a third wave which was sort of in between the two as well.
I need to get to my point now,
Sure.
which is nobody remembers a national
I heard your point,
a
Dave.
national lockdown in Australia, the US, or the UK because of the Asian flu, the Hong Kong flu, or even the swine flu. What's changed since then and 2019-20 is that we have globalism, planes coming in from, as you can see from that graph there, most of the outbreaks came from Asia. And so this is why we've had to go into a lockdown, because of globalism, and particularly because we are so dependent on Asian goods and people now for our economic prosperity.
Yeah, well, and that just supports Dave's case that, we could consider alleviating the internal lockdown somewhat, but we have to keep the borders shut to make sure that we're not getting in those extra waves from outside. But I mean, my view is that all of this is putting a lot of faith in the numbers that we're being given, and to the degree to which we trust the numbers is the degree to which we could be acting on totally erroneous information or totally falsified information, or at least very delayed information that's not accurate enough, and junk in, junk out with any statistical analysis. So because we can't know, my personal position is that it's wise to remain in voluntary lockdown as long as possible, as much as possible, and take every precaution. And I don't condone any of what the state is enforcing, but I think if people are choosing to remain in lockdown, and even if that does harm the economy, look, I've become more of an accelerationist anyway. If it's going to crash everything, then let's just get it on. Like, let's just let it happen, because the system needs to be broken in order to be rebuilt as something better. And the effect that this is having on the psyche of the nation as well as on the economy is unprecedented in our generation, and possibly in any generation. So just be wise and keep yourself and your family safe, and let's just see how it plays out, because I don't think any of this is working ultimately to the advantage of the current power structures. I think this will lead, the way that they're clamping down is only going to lead to an uprising against them eventually.
Yeah.
James, I dare say you sound delighted with the coronavirus outbreak.
Yes, there was an article written about you by SES.
I'm not. I'm not. I am enjoying myself, but that's because I have a very blessed life, And
you mentioned the V
I love my
word,
family.
a voluntary lockdown, not this basically the. To put on our old libertarian hats, the state is force. When they're saying we're asking you to do the right thing and stay at home, translate to that, stay in your home, otherwise guys with guns will turn up and make you stay at home.
Yeah. The only reason why they have to threaten and assert force is because we now live in a low trust society, and the reason we live in a low trust society is because of multiculturalism and globalism, as we've pointed out countless times. So the fact that we do have to close up our borders and begin to rethink the internationalist scheme and get back to a local mindset and get back to a local dependency rather than a global dependency for our supply chain. All of this is positive and healthy and going to move us in a better direction in the long run. We just have to be willing to accept some discomfort in the short run. And, that's fine. For me, like, I think we'll be okay, and, people will die, and the strong and the smart will hopefully survive and do something better with the future.
Our young aren't dying in Australia like they are in Europe and North America from the coronavirus. There's only been, I think, one death under 50. And so it's obviously that young Australians are made of a bit more steel than those in North America and Europe, because our young have come out of it well, they've obviously contracted the coronavirus. They're the demographic that's contracted it the most, but there's been no deaths from it, which shows that we are a healthier nation than others.
We have less fatties. Have you seen the footage?
And we've got lower density, population density too. We've got more sunshine. Like Australia has, and we're an island. We've got a lot going for us in terms of surviving this this pandemic better than
also,
a lot of other nations.
Currently, it's summer. It is like I'm sort of pinging backwards and forth, but one argument in favour of keeping lockdown going is that we are getting into winter now.
Gee, why don't you make out with Daniel Andrews already, Dave?
That's not an argument, Tim.
All of the speculating about what we ought to do, it really depends on your time preferences as well. Because if you look at the whole situation from a sort of a much broader intergenerational perspective, all pandemics are eugenic. All pandemics are eugenic, and
True.
so it's a net positive for the gene pools of the whole world. For a pandemic to sweep through and kill a huge section of the population. So even if it gets really, really bad and, a fifth of the population of the whole planet die, ultimately down the line, that's a eugenic process. So it will make human beings stronger. It will make gene pools stronger into the future. But, that's really, very sad for those who are too weak to survive it. So you must, as an individual, coming back to the micro level of your own life and your own lifetime, you must, as an individual, be as responsible as you can be and be as strong as you can be. Develop yourself and your family to be as strong and resilient to both the virus and the social change, and make sure that you're not a statistic. Make sure that your family survives into the future. So taking personal responsibility is far more important than worrying about whether we can go out for a latte together or not.
Or a cappuccino at the local cafe.
Yeah, fuck it. The world's going to get a hell of a lot worse for other reasons too, moving into the future. They're curating the books you can buy in New Zealand. Like, this is the tip of the iceberg for how bad things are going to get in the West. So chaos is ahead. Be strong and be as ready as you can be.
There's a book that I think should be classified as fiction, which is Malcolm Turnbull's memoir, A Bigger Picture. Do you know that he's gone after one of Scott Morrison's senior advisors, the publisher, Grant Hardy, and there were 59 illegal copies distributed. And apparently they reached... do you know who got the exclusive on this... piracy of Malcolm Turnbull's book? Guess which news outlet?
The ABC.
Think of another one that likes Malcolm Turnbull and he likes them.
The Guardian.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this
the
is
Guardian in Australia.
Yeah. Yeah. Malcolm Turnbull's book published a list of Legion recipients of unauthorized copies. Publishers reached settlement with Scott Morrison's advisor Nicola Liu. Ask whether senior political figures were among those sent. The memoir CEO says, how senior is that you want? Tuesday evening, Hardy Grant reached a settlement with Scott Morrison's advisor Nicola over claims he distributed unauthorized copies of Malcolm Turnbull's book, A Bigger Picture. I wonder with this, it implies financial settlement. How much was the settlement? They're implying that this is like a really valuable product. What was that?
Yeah.
Well, isn't it going for $8? Isn't it going for $8 on Amazon now or something like that?
Well, I looked up on Booktopia before, which is probably Australia's biggest online bookstore.
I reckon it's just a marketing campaign to bolster sales.
Because apparently, it costs $41. I'll put it up here. $41.25 from Booktopia. It's
plus postage.
It's 704 pages.
God.
Is it hardback?
Yeah, it'd have to be at that price. It would have to be.
Yeah,
surely.
It ships in 10 to 15 business days, and Booktopia says it's trending, so it must be very popular. James, do you know?
Here's something. Yeah, it was going for $8 on at Big W.
It could have been a Photoshop.
Oh, no.
There's been lots of Photoshops going around.
Oh, okay.
Like there's been Photoshops at the toilet paper aisle and on toilet rolls.
Oh yeah, there's those photoshops. So this one's saying that on Amazon on Wednesday you can pick it up for just $8.
Is that a link or is that a photo?
I don't know what you're talking
Look,
about.
one thing is certain: I will not be buying or reading this book.
James,
Guaranteed.
have you made sure to hunt down all the people who've got unauthorized copies of the Ghost of Emily? Has Rational Rise Publishing gone after all those people and demanded a settlement from them?
If they read it, I take it as a compliment, and I trust that people are more than willing to pay for my wares if they appreciate them. I don't give a damn about piracy or intellectual property.
Yeah. And also is reading out the book in a YouTube video, is that also counted as piracy? Because Malcolm Turnbull he's done the official audio book, him reading it for 28 hours and 25 minutes.
God, why would you want to listen to that windbag for any longer? As I suggested the other day, once they've been found guilty as sin for treason, both Kevin Rudd and Malcolm Turnbull should be sentenced to life social isolation with each other.
Yeah.
I can think of no more fitting punishment for the two of those traitors. Just the fact that we have had two complete political chameleons in the last decade, both managed to subvert their own parties and run them as their own fiefdoms.
Vanity projects.
Not have any actual policy which actually Kevin Rudd was not a Labourite. Kevin Rudd was a Kevin Ruddite. Malcolm Turnbull was definitely not a Liberal. He only cared about himself. And they had no political... These two Prime Ministers, they had no political principles whatsoever. They made the rest of the political parties look like they had principles. And the fact that Australia could actually produce two of these people and have them both rise to power as Prime Minister within the last decade, it's one of the most amazing, bizarre things that you can think of. Like, this happened in Australia.
Do you know that because there's been those expulsion motions that have been proposed against Malcolm Turnbull by New South Wales branches of the Liberal Party, he does have some defenders in the Liberal Party.
Of course he does, because there are still traitors in the Liberal Party.
Christopher Pine wrote an op-ed for 10 Daily
Every one of them.
saying how...
Christopher Pine, imagine my shock. Christopher Pine, who happily lives with his family. Oh my God.
Yeah, he retired from politics to spend more time with his family.
Yeah, and not look at gay porn on election evening. Yeah.
Oh, his phone got hacked.
Yeah. That's it. Tell my other leg.
And also, one of the Berejiklian ministers, Matt Keane, he also wrote an op-ed in the Fairfax papers. Remember, he was the Liberal in the New South Wales cabinet who said they needed to do more on climate change. As did
yes.
Yeah, another one was previously the former energy minister Don Harwan. Remember, he was the arts minister who had to resign for going to his holiday house on the Central Coast.
So
I vote that we just expel all Liberal and Labor politicians from any positions of power. I don't care who they are. I don't think either of those parties should exist, and we should be looking at alternatives. Yeah.
Well, in another 10 years' time, again with political upheaval, it's entirely possible. Again, what happens to those parties when they don't have the money to fund them?
Bye-bye. Corporate side.
Yeah, that's it. So as we said, we all sound delighted with the coronavirus outbreak.
Well, I've also made the point that the left have learned to love the lockdown as well, because it is wreaking economic damage. They were really upset that their pet cause, climate change alarmism, was basically cast aside. And I went through on my Wilms Front program last night. John Hewson wrote an op-ed in The Guardian saying that we should treat the coronavirus as a dress rehearsal for the climate emergency, and we need to listen to science more. And that's what Greta said. This is proof we need to listen to science more. Or it could be just that the coronavirus, people have actually died from it, unlike climate change.
Yes.
Mm.
So what you're saying is that it's actually the left who are using coronavirus to push their agendas.
They've quickly
While-
adopted. They
Yes.
were really upset initially because it meant that mass migration was suspended. Remember, Socialist Alternative protested against the racist
Yep.
travel ban. Pissy Leaks Pete filmed the Melbourne protests. So remember how cut they were initially about this coronavirus.
Absolutely. And now they're using it to push their agendas. But at the same time, they're projecting it on the right.
Yeah, this is. Oh, sorry. This is. I'll get to this article shortly. Yeah, this is. Who is Blackthorn Jack at XYZ?
Oh, he's a good man, a very good man. I like his writing.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys who, you can tell people who are red-pilled by their writing because they just get straight to the point. They ignore the fluff and they just get straight to the heart of the matter. Blackthorn Jack's like that.
SBS globalists are losing credibility due to coronavirus, and the headline was. I'm glad you haven't linked to it. I really need. I know you have, like just in small writing there. Why Australian white supremacists and neo-Nazis are delighted with the coronavirus outbreak. And who's the imaginary person they quoted?
Peter Duggan.
Who?
Peter Duggan.
It says here Andy Fleming.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Peter,
Slack bastard.
To be fair to Peter Duggan, he's not the only member of Slack Bastard. It's amazing how often our thesis that basically Slack Bastard is a collection of mainstream media journalists gets confirmed. Just the fact that they think that they can call Peter Duggan a so-called far-right researcher, as in a researcher of the far right, and get away with it. Like these guys are literally communists. They're anarchist communists.
Although we do have our far left researcher on the right, David Clarkson. Nobody knows who he is or whether he's a combination of people.
Fair enough. But you don't have the mainstream media giving him a platform and sort of putting him up as an authority on the far leftists. They're simply using a communist, like a literal communist.
Yeah, it says on his. Or should I say?
Portray ordinary Australians who just want their country back as far right extremists.
And narco-communist. Should I say he? Has Slack Bastard confirmed that they are a he?
Well, we wouldn't want a dead name, wouldn't we?
Well, we're in the realm of politics, so let's
misgendering. That's the term there. So as you can see, they use that photo SBS of the St Kilda rally, because remember there was the Basil Foltzy Nazi there. I actually saw some. They didn't play the full. I'll bring us back for a moment. I'll have to dig it up, but you know how they just filmed the guy briefly doing the thing. He actually, there's actually four. They didn't release it until recently.
How high's your fridge, Tim?
But he actually did march along like Basil Fawlty doing the thing. He actually did do that. They filmed him doing that, but they haven't released it until now. So he did the full Basil Fawlty march, but they only showed him just doing it briefly. Yeah, so he actually did do the whole satire thing. So he's actually like taking the piss.
Yes. I've seen that footage.
Yeah.
Yeah, they outright lied. They just basically
that footage has I've eventually seen it. They covered it up for so long to make out that
I had actually seen that footage. Like a while ago.
And then there was a guy who was waving like that, and they photographed him when he had his arm like that to make out he was doing a Nazi salute.
Yes. Yeah, we've. If anybody's watching this, I advise them just they could go through our old streams on the subject, our articles on the subject. We've basically torn the mainstream media narrative to shreds about that rally. It was basically ordinary Aussies who want their country back, and they deliberately faked the footage and they deliberately misrepresented photos to make it look like people were doing salutes that we're not allowed to do anymore.
Yeah.
I haven't actually read the SBS article myself.
Oh, I
because, like,
did. Slackbuster
Yeah?
said he was disturbed.
Oh, really?
What
Well,
was he
I'm glad that we
disturbed
can
about?
escape.
That
That's what I figured out. He was disturbed about what he'd seen on the Australian far right or alt right, and I made the point. Like, is he more disturbed than normal?
So he's claiming that people on the far right are delighted about
Yeah, and there's the
coronavirus.
accelerationists like yourself.
Well, it's like it's the level of retarded thinking when you jump into those moralisms. But I mean, if you're talking to the mainstream media, you're already a retard, and nobody of worth their salt gives a damn what you think anyway.
Yeah.
But to characterize someone like me as being delighted by the coronavirus, no, I'm not. I'm just able to separate my hysterical emotions, which I don't actually have about this, from an observation of reality. I'm able to look at things at different levels of resolution, different timescales, and from different perspectives. And there are opportunities in every crisis. And that's not me delighting in anyone's suffering. I don't wish for anyone to be suffering or dying. But guess what? People are suffering and dying every single day. And there's bugger all we can do to stop that.
It's more we're saying
choose your
we told
flavor
you
of suffering.
so. That's what we're saying. I mean, we
Oh,
told
yeah,
you
yeah.
that
Well,
something like
yeah,
this would
we were
happen.
right. We were right. And actually, it's our love of truth that leads us to the compassionate behavior of telling the truth to people and trying to stop the lies from leading us into these sorts of crises where many, many people do die. If we lived by nationalist policies, which we have all arrived at in our pursuit of truth, then many fewer people would die. So fuck you if you think I'm delighting in this. If you're not a nationalist and you're still promoting open borders and multiculturalism, you're an accomplice to this crisis. And you can't claim the moral high ground. The moral high ground is ours, and we will claim it. It is ours.
Yeah, and you've really got to the heart of the matter there, James. I've seen the same article written a number of times. It's why I haven't bothered to read the SBS article. Over the last couple of months now, a series of articles have come out in the mainstream media where they try to do several things with people who they like to say are on the far right. They try to link us to every conspiracy theory out there. So they always find a way of putting in the 5G sort of stuff in there.
It's funny though, because most of those conspiracy theories are proving to be true as well. Not the 5G one, but many of the things they're dumping on us is like, oh, that was also true.
Yes, like the whole devised in a lab. Yes.
Yeah, or they've gone back to the bat soup now that it came from the wet market. They remember they dismissed initially.
Hang on, let Dave. Hang on, Tim. Let Dave. I'm sorry. I interrupted. Go, Dave.
So they try to bring in other conspiracy, like so-called conspiracy theories. They have accused us, of trying to be accelerationists from the coronavirus, like saying, oh, we could use this to actually push things along, when really it's just like, no, all we have to do is get out of the way, because this is pushing what's happening with the coronavirus and the incompetent actions of the government, that's pushing things along. And they're always they're always trying to just put some kind of spin on it, because they understand that as I summarized earlier, like the coronavirus is restoring the natural order, and that means that they're losing control of the narrative. So this is what they always try to do when they realize that they're losing control of a narrative. They try to get out ahead of the curve and try to say, this is what all the far right people are saying. They deliberately twist what we're saying so that when normies hear what we actually say, it's like there's an extra barrier of that they have to get past before they actually listen to what we say and consider our arguments. Yeah,
but the beauty is that most normies, when they're exposed to that kind of propaganda now, largely thanks to the whole Trump phenomenon culturally in the West, and his exposure of the fake news media, many more normies are beginning to say, hey, maybe if they're saying this, maybe the opposite is true. Maybe they're not telling the truth. And the normies who take the blue pills and just accept what the mainstream media hand them are basically all boomers, and they'll basically all be dead within a decade or two anyway, or maybe in the next 6 months.
Earlier, the 6 months.
Yeah. It's just
don't take that laugh as me being delighted, by the way. Sorry, James.
No. It's black humor, you know.
Gallows.
The main point I'm trying to make is that we don't need to care anymore about what normies think. And I've really pushed way beyond that threshold of caring. If a normie has been led to believe by a lying mainstream media that I'm a neo-Nazi, anti-Semite, or any of that garbage, I don't care if people think that anymore, because the people whose opinions do matter to me know who I am, know what I really think, and if they don't, they have the decency to ask specific questions. I'm an open book. I'll share my views on anything. I don't have anything to lie about. So, you know, we just, more and more people will follow us into not caring about slipping up or making the wrong joke or, you know, using the wrong pronoun or any of that stuff that they use as they try to twist into being weapons against us, or doing the wrong little Nazi dance at the wrong event. It won't matter anymore, because they've been exposed. They lie all the time. And their entire function, the mainstream media, their entire function is to propagandize people into their own genocide. And it's almost over.
Shall we go to some entropy questions and super chats now?
Absolutely.
So we've got 2 questions from James Boom. Is Australia still accepting migrants like Germany is doing? I assume that the foreigners ban includes migrants, because migrants are foreigners. They're non-citizens, non-residents, and Australia is shut to that now.
I actually don't know. I found it interesting that Donald Trump has said he's suspending immigration.
There's a loophole with him, but James Boom asked about Australia.
Yeah, but like it would imply that maybe the same thing is here, like, because we know that it's cut off to foreigners, but like, I don't know if like the immigration is still ongoing. Like,
it was a nothing burger in the States anyway, unfortunately. I did my show on this today. It was a nothing burger, yeah. Really? Basically, Trump came in strong on Twitter, and then Kushner and all of the neocon globalists surrounding Trump talked him down, and he the executive order that he actually signed doesn't prevent new workers from coming in on H-1B or H-2B visas. All it does is prevent a few particular worker visas and immigrants to become permanent residents, green cards and that sort of thing. Okay. So it's only going to affect about 10% of the immigrant workforce numbers. And while, as I ranted quite passionately about today, while there are 22 million American citizens who are out of work, they're still going to be continuing to employ any foreign immigrants who are there on work visas. They're not sending them home. They're not, giving those jobs to the Americans who need them. So it's very far from an America First executive order. It's a nothing burger.
Okay. What I do know from I wrote on this last week. Like, it's been reported that this is the first time Australia's population has dropped.
Yeah, 300,000.
Yeah, which is a really, really big deal. Again, like, that's us simply pointing to the results of what coronavirus has brought about and going, well, this works in our favour. Call us delighted.
James Boom's second question is, did you hear about the posters in the UK? Some men arrested for the pubs are closed, but the orders are open posters. I saw a Blair Cottrell post about that before.
What was that, sorry?
2 men were arrested for racist posters because it said pubs closed, borders open.
Yes. So they actually found open. Yeah, so like people were putting up posters going, pubs closed, borders open. They were basically like...
Isn't that a fact?
It is a fact. Yeah, it's a fact.
Yes. Oh, it's a hate fact.
Yes.
It's a hate fact, yes.
Okay. If you state that fact, fuck, man, we live in clown world.
Because UK is not closed.
nothing surprises me out of England. It's interesting that we still have to like fact check for New Zealand, but nothing surprises me out of England.
Maybe New Zealand should
Yeah.
just change its name to, well, there's already lots of places called New England, but New Zealand basically is New England in terms of the police surveillance state.
And isn't that a shame? Like, I've said repeatedly, actually, like my number one, I see my number one role as like here at the XYZ, not necessarily to uncuck white people, but to uncuck my own Anglo-Celtic people, because like when you think of like what foreigners think of white people, like they'll generally say, oh, they're very weak and they have no sense of themselves. And like if you want to like pick out, like if you would ask them to pick out, okay, who's the weakest of all white people? Anglos. And isn't it ironic that like we're saying, oh, you know, like New Zealand, we could call it New England because they're going down England's road. New Zealand is New England. New Zealand was founded by the English. It's supposed to be English, just like Australia is supposed to be English. It's a disgrace.
A lot of mix here, though.
yeah. English Irish, that's basically the Australian nationality. That to me, that's our number one job, like to wake up our own people. Yeah,
and it's a far cry from Britannia ruling the waves, isn't it? It's in such a short time. It's really just been through the 20th century. The Anglo people have become entirely cucked, and you know, so much for winning. Hey, so much for winning those world wars.
Yeah.
Well, you look at like it's interesting that World War II, the war in the Pacific, was against Japan, and we were allied with China. Yet, basically, in the space of a decade, China became communist, became an enemy, and in 1964, the Olympic Games were in Japan, and Australia had a roaring trade with them. So it's amazing that role reversal now when Japan is one of our greatest allies in the Asia Pacific region now.
So you're saying,
I mean, Japan
saying...
became an American colony. Essentially, that's why it became an American colony, and it completely abandoned its traditional culture, and now it's a suicidal, dwindling race.
Well, if you look at its demographics, it's something like 99% Japanese.
That's true.
Yeah, but they're all old.
Time, they'll still be Japanese. Well,
in 50 years' time, they'll be decimated in terms of their numbers. They'll still be Japanese, but there'll be far fewer of them. And they're a very unhappy people, even though they've maintained the high trust society. Don't get me wrong, I love Japan, and I've of all of the alien nations, I have the dearest relationship with Japan and have spent time there. But yeah, they need a traditional renaissance as much as we do in the West, to restore their connection to their heritage, to their traditional culture. And young people have really railed against and moved away from the traditional culture. And it's, they're not going to have as many kids, hugely high suicide rates. And it's not looking good for Japan unless there is a resurgence of, unless they have a sort of Zoomer Japan first traditionalist movement, as America is beginning to have and other Western countries are.
Hard times could bring that about. When Japan falls on hard times, watch out, because maybe, like they'll sort of go, oh, when was the last time we had a glorious Japanese empire? Maybe we could sort of rebuild that. Watch out.
That's right. The pendulum swings once again. Yeah. And it'll happen in lots of places.
Yeah. I'm sure if we nuke a few Chinese cities, they'll become our allies. It's the only way to be sure with those Asian countries. That's how it works. You nuke their cities. Okay, we'll do whatever you say, guys.
Yeah, I don't think we should get into a nuclear war with China. Personally, I think that would be
more of them out there.
We've got a super chat from Port Film Co-op for $3 US. Thank you, Port Film Co-op. Shout out for a huge James Fox Higgins show tomorrow morning. E. Michael Jones is live guest. Logos rising.
Yes, that's going to be great. I'm looking forward to that.
That's amazing.
Right, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Hey, full credit to Dia for hooking me up. She charmed the good doctor and his associate and put in a good word for me and gave me the hookup. So shout out to Dia Beltran as well for that one. She's a good friend.
Good work.
Is it
Good
going to be
work. They'll
live
good
or is it
listeners.
already being recorded?
Yeah, no, it'll be live. It'll be live at 9 a.m. Sydney and Melbourne time tomorrow morning, and we'll ask questions that come in the form of super chats. I'll ignore all other comments.
You've been having some pretty top-notch guests on lately, James. You had Mark Collette a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, well, again, hats off to you guys for the hookup there, because you had him on Uncuckables first. But yeah, no, that was great. I really enjoyed that, and he's asked me to come on Patriotic Weekly Review at some point in the near future. So that'll be fun. I look forward to that, and I really like what Jason's doing. I've only just started checking out his stuff, the No White Guilt channel, who does that weekly podcast with Mark, and they're great guys, really cool, really nice guys. I like them.
I'm still somewhat recovering from Monday's epic Wilms front with Max Eigen from the Crow House. I'm not sure if you've seen that episode or checked out his channel, but I knew I was in for quite a wild ride. He's incredibly popular. He's an Aussie based in the Outback. He's got 221,000 subs, and he's followed the Epstein Maxwell story since the beginning, the bushfires, and now he's looking at the New World Order latest attempt with the coronavirus. So it's worth.
So he took you down some rabbit holes, did he?
Yes, he
Dragged
did.
you through some rabbit holes.
Yes.
Yeah, nice. So he's still brushing off all the dirt.
Especially at the end, where he, during January, he believes that he was hit with a, what was it, magnetic or electronic beam. They tried to basically fry his brain.
Yeah, those things will hurt. Yep. Yeah. So an interesting character by the sounds of it.
Yeah, he's even though he's sort of on the sort of same level as Alex Jones. He doesn't agree with Alex Jones. Thinks he's a bit of a controlled opposition, but he's passionate. But I certainly didn't feel that he was. I didn't feel intimidated by him, or he didn't come across as aggressive when we were chatting. If I said something which he didn't accept, he just sort of corrected me. He didn't sort of say, no, you're wrong.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so he's a affable character.
But hopefully I'll have Laura Towler, who is Mark Collette's right-hand woman at Patriotic Alternative. They've got a new website, or relaunched their website, patrioticalternative.co.uk. We would have had this interview a while back, but Laura's trying to get a new internet connection, which, as you can imagine, with the current lockdown, that's a bit difficult, and she had a fault. Hopefully, fingers crossed, she'll get it fixed.
Yeah, cool, man. Good luck with that. That'll be a great conversation. Look forward to that. I'm going to check out your Max Iger one as well. It sounds like it'll be good fun.
And the week after, I'm having your mate Noah from the Patriarch Hour as well.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, he's Noah's starting to do the rounds now with the Aussie alternative media. And just so everyone knows, we are on tonight with the 14th episode of Patriarch Hour straight after this, in about half an hour's time. So please come over to the James Fox Higgins Show / Rational Rise TV channel for that after we finish with the Uncuckables tonight. We're talking about male vulnerability. Should be a good one.
And Portfilm Co-op has sent through a question on entropy. I'll put the link in again. If you want to ask a question or send through a super chat. It's currently tied at the moment. Which airline is worse, Virgin or Qantas? Does anyone know how to find Australian-made baseball caps, or how they could possibly be made here? Dusty is trying to find local merch. He's now found t-shirts, but caps aren't anywhere to be found. Well, from where our studio is, just around the corner from the block, there's a local merchandise manufacturer.
And they make the apparel itself, or do they just do prints on Chinese stuff?
I'd have to investigate that further. They print it here, yes.
Yeah. The thing is, this is a glorious time for any enterprising Australians who want to step into manufacture, who have the capital or the equipment or the technical skills to do it. Because it's only going to get harder, I think, moving forward to be able to rely on the Chinese trade connections that we've been so dependent upon for way too long. So, there's going to be great opportunities for people to make big business. And I tell you what, if an Australian merchandise, like apparel manufacturer, steps up and is able to provide for Dusty Bogan, I want to be in touch with them too about getting Australian made apparel. That would be really, really good. And this is the attitude we should be, I think, all moving towards, because voting with our dollar is essential, as well as speaking the truth and being sensible and reasonable about things. We also need to ensure a future for our economy by spending money on local produce and supporting our local producers as much as we possibly can.
Is that a revision of the 14 words there? We must support.
We must ensure.
Yes.
Yeah, we must ensure a future for our economy and our local markets.
That's just as racist.
Okay.
That 14 words.
Yes.
Sure. Yes.
What's also going to come out of this coronavirus pandemic, if it's still an if we get all our freedoms back, because remember they're saying they can't let us free from lockdown unless we download the app. It's sort of the old thing. I will give you everything you want as long as you bend the knee.
Yeah.
You know what? I had this really weird thing happen, and you got to watch out for these oaths that people or governments or anyone want you to step into without warranty, without full disclosure and the ability to really decide things. I had this guy yesterday who I just came back to Facebook just for a laugh, to connect with some people I'd lost touch with. And added a bunch of people I used to be friends with previously, and started chatting. And this guy who I'd been friends with previously, who'd always seemed a little bit odd, he just straight up, like not 5 minutes into me being back on Facebook, invited me to join the Order of the Knights Templar. And all I would have to do is type the words "I do," and he would instantaneously transfer his full Kabbalic powers to me, and that after a period of reorientation, he would then begin to reveal all the information about it. And I assumed he was joking, and I had a laugh, and he got really offended and said, "You sound like Kathy Newman."
It sounds like he's sort of buttering you up for something.
But my feeling was, and it's the same, and I'll tie it now to what you were saying, Tim. It's not a total tangent here. My feeling was this absolute assuredness that no, actually, what's going on here is something dark and evil and spiritually not right. And I want no part in it, and I'm not even curious. And no, I won't say I do. I said, nah, I don't want any part of it. And this is the attitude that we have to take towards the app. This is the attitude that we have to take towards the certificates of immunity to the mark of the beast.
Papers, please.
We need to take it totally to the mandatory vaccination. We have to draw a hard line en masse as a people and say, no, we won't eat the bugs. We won't live in the pod. You will not stick that jab in my arm.
Or make us download the app.
Yeah, no.
What
I
if
don't
we
even
just
have a smartphone anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like they said, Scott Morrison said, what is it, last Friday? If not enough people voluntarily take it up, we may have to make it mandatory. Where you're assuming that we all have,
which means that they're going to make it mandatory. It's going to happen.
Is that like when U2 made their shitty 19th album mandatory and it appeared in everyone's iTunes accounts? Out of nowhere?
They're assuming that it's already mandatory to have a smartphone or something. I mean, they haven't counted on the fact that we might not have a smartphone, or we might just decide to flush it down the toilet.
Yes.
Yeah, I did exactly that. I dropped my smartphone in the dog bowl, the water bowl, and then promptly replaced it with a dumb phone. And I hate it so much that I haven't turned it on in a week.
Oh, you should have filmed it, or that would have been
I was
great.
actually filming at the time, funnily enough, but the phone's gone. So
Yeah,
the footage is
Max Egan, he doesn't have a smartphone or even a credit card as well. Just he knows they can still track him, but you should make it difficult to them. Sally McManus, the secretary of the ACTU, was on Q&A this week, and they were talking about the app, and she said, I just assume since I'm a union leader that the government's already surveilling me. I know lots of union officials who have been, so it doesn't really bother me. And like we've already talked about how like we think that Mike Burgess, the ASIO chief, or somebody, one of the people under him is probably watching this, and we are being surveilled by some authority.
I would say there's some junior, you know, some junior AFP person who watches our shows. Hey, thanks for tuning in.
But you don't.
Thanks for the great work. Hey, AFP, thank you for the fantastic work you've done on all the pedophiles recently in Australia. That massive sting. They've arrested like 16 or 17 people on over 700 charges of child pornography and pedophilia. Ace job, guys. Hats off to you. We salute you. That is the real work, and we love you for it. Go get them.
The point I was making here is that you don't voluntarily allow them to surveil you. Like
No.
you don't you don't download this app to say, oh yeah, I'll make it easier for you to spy on me. Like
don't be a simp to the state.
You're basically a cuckazin is a new term that I'm coining.
I like it.
That could take off,
cuckazins. Yeah. No, we are uncuckazinable here.
And we won't dominate our neighbors either if they're just having some drinks or something on the
let them eat ice
porch.
cream. Let them have their parties.
Because we've already been through the snitch hotline. It had over like 2,000 calls.
Is this an Australian one?
Yes.
Wow.
Is it a purpose-built snitch hotline?
I think it is actually, yes.
Like, social distancing snitch line.
Yeah. Well, there's a
People are
reason
so
why,
right.
there's a reason why
Jesus
I've been trying to use the term anti-social distancing.
Yeah.
I've been saying for a while, like the term social distancing sounds like it has come straight out of a human resources department. Adam Piggott,
speak for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Adam Piggott, I've been trying to find a perfect replacement term for it. And Adam Piggott coined it the other day. Anti-social distancing. I'm trying to use that all the time now.
It's so interesting, the people who said in the past, I'd never turn in and Frank, and they're like, hello? Yes, there's somebody who's having a beer out the front porch there.
Hello, there's somebody using a ballpoint pen. Oh, sorry. What?
James Boom has got another question on entropy. Is Kim Jong Un, North Korean dictator, still alive? James Boom wrote Kim Jong Il. I think that's basically a combination.
Kim Jong Un.
Yeah,
that's his dad and his cousin rolled together. But
little Kim, we just call him.
It's sort of
South Korea said that they haven't had any.
Saw him across the border and they waved. He was okay.
Yeah, they haven't had any confirmation that he's ill or anything's sus.
Why would South Korea be in the know? Why would South Korea know?
They've got probably spies in there.
Yeah, I suppose. It's really hard to trust any information coming out of a place like North Korea, isn't it? And you know, it did seem to be a rumor that it was a surgery-based grave danger, they were saying. And then it went like wildfire that he was already dead. And then it was like, no, he's brain dead. No, my military sources tell me he's brain dead. It's going to, if he is dead, I honestly think they will keep the story that he's alive going as long as they possibly can. So it could be weeks or months before we get any confirmation of such a thing, if ever.
It could have been a US interview with a US crew.
As we know from Big Brother, Big Brother doesn't actually need to physically exist.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the thing about him. Like they could say that he's stays alive, and they could say that
Yeah.
like
Great leader.
he's
great
immortal.
leader. Great leader
He's
is alive
immortal.
and well. And look, they've got we literally have the technology. It's not just movie magic anymore. We have the deep fake technology now to keep people alive on screen. And in fact,
yes.
I can neither confirm nor deny whether I'm a real person. I could be an AI.
So maybe, what is it? Libertarian James Fox Higgins was killed and created with a fascist AI version.
something like that. Yeah.
The North Koreans could tell, like, the North Korean people, look, Kim Jong-il is immortal, and they'd have to go along with it.
Yeah. Well, haven't they had that narrative sort of going, that he's a living deity to some degree?
Yeah, it's only stretching a little bit.
Well, it's happened plenty of times before, and you keep a people subservient and reliant upon the state and trapped enough and under enough rule, you can then curate the books that they're allowed to read, and then cut off their internet, and over a generation or two make them incredibly naive, out of touch people, and then you've got yourself a great little communist tyrannical state to lead, and you can tell them whatever you want and they'll believe it. I mean, this is the subject of just about every dystopian civilization that we have read about in fiction. So
there's a reason that she's called Comrade Jacinta. That's what you're getting at.
I wasn't even, that's just one example of many. As we've said tonight, Britain is in bad shape and heading down far more Orwellian paths than any of us thought possible in such a rapid at such a rapid pace. But yeah, the stuff of fiction is absolutely possible, and most of it is based on projection of things that have happened in the past into the future.
And while we're all consumed with coronavirus, China is still trying to flex its muscle in the South China Sea again, and Australia's joined US ships there because China has created those artificial islands and claimed them as their territory there. This is going to be I was going to get to this before we got sidetracked again, that
we were having a conversation. It happens.
China is flexing its geopolitical muscle again, and is going to more than ever now, especially since the Western world is weaker. But they've already found that their usual tactics, such as calling Peter Dutton a racist and a US puppet, it doesn't have the same effect that it did a year ago. Like they called Alan Jones racist a couple of weeks ago. I mean, their propaganda now is people just groan at it. Like,
well, their propaganda doesn't work as well, but getting one US sailor infected with the coronavirus on a ship can shut down an entire ship as big as an aircraft carrier. So they're very smart to start trying to push their muscle now, because they've like a US aircraft carrier has literally been disabled. That's one of the main ways that America projects power and protects its empire. So get used to this sort of stuff. You're as the US generally withdraws from the rest of the world, you're going to see these other countries kick up stinks and see what they can get away with.
And if these narratives that are currently classified as conspiracy theories, though there's significant evidence to make it absolutely possible that this coronavirus strain is a biological weapon developed partly through espionage happening within the United States by Chinese nationals linked to Harvard University, all of these little ties. And Trump is aware of these things, and he says he's not happy about them. He's investigating them. If these things turn out to be all part of a plot that has, whether it's intentional or not, has led to the disruption of the US Navy, then the narrative will change in the future, and it will be not necessarily by the media, maybe led by the president, certainly by the people and alternative media. The narrative will begin to shift in the zeitgeist that this is a coordinated military attack on a sovereign nation, and it will be war with China.
Yeah,
It will be real war.
And they're getting assistance from Silicon Valley as well, which, just to set it out for everyone, Silicon Valley refers to San Jose in California, where all the big tech companies are based. So they're based on US soil, but Facebook, they deemed false the Epoch Times documentary on the origins of the coronavirus, and the YouTube CEO, Susan Wojcicki, whatever her name is, she went on CNN Unreliable Sources program with Brian Seltner to say that YouTube was cracking down on videos that go against the World Health Organization's stance on the coronavirus. So they're basically treasonous organizations now.
Yeah,
we're on YouTube at the moment, so do your worst.
I find Vox Days, like the position he's coming to, is quite interesting. He thinks he thinks it's more plausible that it's a deep state, it's the deep state who did this than China. It'll be interesting to follow that line of thinking as well.
Yeah, as far as subverting the United States democracy and replacing it with a Chinese empire or a Israeli.
Well, they've already bought the NBA over in the United States, the sports league there, because
just staying on the deep state thing, suggesting that maybe trying to provoke a war with the US and China, or trying to kickstart it along. The deep state are the guys who are invested in the financial system. They realize it's collapsing. Let's give it a push.
Yeah. War is one of the most profitable venture if you're pulling levers.
Wasn't going back to that James Bond movie with Elliot Carver, he was trying to start a war between the British and the Chinese in the South China Sea. So
we've always been at war with East Asia.
I guess Mark Zuckerberg or Shushan Wojcicki is the Elliot Carver of the modern age.
Yeah. Yep, and and in this modern age, no one from New Zealand will understand the reference I just made, because it's non-essential reading.
Yes, just love the dear leader.
Yeah, just eat the bugs, stay in your pod.
Yeah. Just send the dear leader a bale of hay just on a regular.
I've noticed that the US-based news networks, such as CNN, when they talk about coronavirus containment, they mention Germany under Angela Merkel and New Zealand under Jacinda Ardern. They don't mention the best nation at containing the coronavirus without the most severe restrictions, which is Australia under Scott Morrison. They just don't want to give him any credit before, probably because they're still butthurt over him not bending the knee to the climate change religion over the bushfires.
Yeah, and the fact that he prays to Jesus Christ.
Oh, yes, as well.
Yeah, they don't like that.
It's a funny one with Scott Morrison. I want to like the guy. He stopped the boats too. But then I hear him saying this app won't be used for any purposes other than tracking who's got coronavirus, and it's just like, come on, Scott, you're smarter than this. I want to like you, but you just say these dumb things.
We're in a weird situation where he wants children to go back to school because that's how they learn best. But the teachers unions are saying, no, we don't want to go back to school because there's no way to ensure that it's safe. And
I'll pipe up here. Having done just 1 day, 2 days worth of lessons, having to upload that to the internet, I don't care. I'll take the risk. I'd rather teach them face to face, because a half-hour lesson becomes several hours of work just to prepare one. People like this is normie tier, but people would have seen there's a viral video that's gone around of a music teacher saying, I wrote a song about the coronavirus, how we're switching to online learning, and it's very funny. I suggest people go watch it, but it's insane. Frankly, I don't care. Like, I would take the risk and do face to face. Like, you're going to see teachers quitting and having breakdowns and suiciding. I know it's norming here, but like the amount of work required to actually like do like a lower grade of teaching for the children is ridiculous. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You're a homeschooler, James. Do you think it's weird that teachers, even though their passion is for teaching, they don't want to go back to school, even though there's no medical advice? The medical advice said that schools can be open.
I think sending your kids to school is weird. So,
Actually, I defer to what you just said. Actually, all schooling should be all centralized schooling should be abolished.
Yeah. I mean, I find the whole experiment of modern schooling to be a very bizarre and unnecessary thing. Anyway, all it is indoctrination camps and state mind control. First place, and that's exactly what it was designed for. By the Prussians, it was a model for creating an army, of obedient, subservient, propagandized soldiers, and it's very effective at that. And this is part of the dumbing down and the idiocracy we live in, is that we've got multiple generations who have been schooled by the state. So, but as far as the teachers not wanting to go back, I don't really know what their motives are.
Do they want some parents to like homeschooling? That's what do. Do they want some parents to like homeschooling? I know a lot have complained about it, but what if some actually like it? Isn't there that risk?
Oh, there has actually been some globo homo attacks on homeschooling. I think there will probably be concern within the education industry complex.
Yeah. Well, Harvard University are putting on a conference in June, if the world exists still in June.
Aren't they working on a vaccine as well?
Yeah. I mean, they got their finger in every pie, Harvard. But the Professor James Dwyer from Harvard has been a long time opponent of homeschooling. He's done multiple research essay, all kinds of research papers and given seminars and all kinds of places like the American Atheist Association and others. And he genuinely believes and openly states that parental rights are conferred by the state, and that the state is the ultimate
piss off
buck stop, for the rights of children, and that the state has to take an active role in deciding the fate and the education and what's in the minds of children. So the educational elite, the globo homo cult at the highest levels are definitely working against homeschooling. Homeschooling is a threat to the status quo and statism and all of that. So they don't want it to continue. But as far as the teachers go, I don't know. Teachers are just normal people acting out of rational self-interest, and they're either worried about the disease or they're enjoying being on the payroll when they don't have to go to work. It's probably just one of those things.
The pattern that we're sort of seeing across the board here, like it is interesting that there's been this attack on homeschooling, and it sounds like it's going to be stepped up. But both with the media, like as we were talking about the SBS article, like it's just the latest in a long series of pieces attacking the right and trying to sort of frame what we're talking about. The globo homo establishment is losing control of the narrative. They're losing their monopoly over our children in terms of this centralized education. It's amazing, like that they're actually having to plan this attack on homeschooling. All of a sudden, due to the coronavirus, en masse, everybody's going to realize that homeschooling is actually going to be a better option than actual schooling. It's like to think that something like that could turn around so quickly. Like before coronavirus, like we were talking about, sort of building like a homeschooling movement over the course of decades. Now, just like that, everybody's been exposed to the benefits of it.
Yeah, and you know that it's the global agenda behind these Harvard researchers as well, pushing this narrative from the top down. Because the recent article in Harvard Magazine, the quote was basically that there's a strong risk that the parents who have their children educated at home, it seems that they're teaching them to question science. This is a quote from a researcher who said that this was a problem. To question science, to promote female subservience, and to teach white supremacy. And so it's like, yeah, well, there it is, right there. They're afraid that they're losing control of the narrative, and so they're going to thrust that extreme far right stuff into the narrative.
Extreme
to try
far
to-
right extremism.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Who knows? Maybe
Supreme
they'll
is,
even look up
is
the
on the
history of the
table.
ballpoint pen.
Yeah.
We'll finish off now with the final super chat from Pissy Leaks Pete, $10 Thank you so
On
much.
your Pete.
No jab, no play, no app. It's hard to trace. Diversity is destruction. Nationalism via localism is reconstruction of a nation. The Unbearables, episode 1, which is about Mike Burgess, the ASIO head, or as XYZ call him Mr. Penis Head. And
He really does look like a penis.
next
I'm
episode
afraid.
will be premiered in the next couple of days. We'll let you know. It's about the Soup Man. So I think he means Tim Supomasani, the former race discrimination commissioner. Now it works at some university in Sydney, is complaining about all the racism against Asian Australians. Now, I think I might have time to just go through this article here just briefly. That Chinese Australian family home in Melbourne targeted with racist graffiti. COVID-19 China die. And apparently they've had 2 attacks. The second attack was partially captured on camera with footage showing someone running from the property in Knoxfield. So,
Are they sure it wasn't a little Jewish guy who also drew a swastika on their house?
because that seems weird that it happened twice to the same place. It hasn't happened to every Chinese home in the area. It's like, it sort of sounds maybe that there's somebody who doesn't like that that family for some other reason as well.
It's entirely plausible that it is so-called racist. Like everybody's going for China. Like we're seeing across the board. Like they're actually reporting that people are basically saying stuff to Chinese people, which before coronavirus they would have been too scared to say. All we're seeing, here,
legit racism is going to rise.
And
it's
especially if we're kept locked down for longer, if Daniel Andrews keeps us locked down for further, people are going to blame the source of the virus more.
All this is the reawakening of a racial consciousness of Australians.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right.
Nice one, guys. Good hang.
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, you're straight back on to your double shift second half.
Yes, triple shift today. I did my daytime stream. This will be my 3rd broadcast for the day. So
You're a machine, James.
You got to be up early as well for E. Michael Jones as well.
Straight back into it tomorrow, but that will be the only one tomorrow. After this, guys, hop over to the Rational Rise TV channel, and we'll be kicking off Patriarch Hour 14, and then E. Michael Jones tomorrow.
RationalRise.tv update for me and the audience.
Oh, it's still there. We're just we're a little behind with our uploads because I just need to figure out a server issue, and I'm booked in early next week for an appointment with the developers for that. So there's the only news is the last few episodes of my show and Tim's shows and the Uncuckables are a little bit behind, but it's all still here on YouTube, so there's no emergency as yet. But you can help to ensure a future for our independent platforms by subscribing at rationalrise.tv. Put your money where your mouth is, folks. Come and support these projects.
Yeah, and you'll see me tomorrow night on Trad Tasman Talk with Dewey DeBoa. He's still allowed to converse with me weekly. I might share with him a few lines from a fiction book. I wonder if he'll be allowed to hear it.
contraband.
All right, good night,
Cool.
everybody.
Looking forward to that. All right, good night. See you,
Nice
folks.
chatting with you all. Bye.
Bye.
See you, Dave. See you, Tim.
Cheerio.
The Uncuckables.